Department of Interior as a historic district. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to go around the block and end the program at the museum. I think we could wait for a few more.
Well, there's a family about 2 minutes away right now.
Okay, well, we'll wait at least 2 minutes.
Perfect. Silly, huh? How long have you been around the story?
My name is Carney Rhinevault. I'm the town historian now. I was for 5 years, about 10 years ago, and I took a break. I'm a licensed land surveyor, so I did some work in New York City for 2 years, and it was a while after that, and now I'm the town historian again. I've always been a member of the town Historical Society. Can everyone hear me? I've got a microphone here. And the Town Historical Society is in that big brick building. That's where we're going to end our program after we go around the block. Almost every house has some really historically significant things that I'm going to try to tell you about. And maybe some of you can help me a little if you know something. Certainly, I don't know everything. All right. And I think we're going to, well.
Are we going to go by the house where we're
Yes, we're going to go near it.
Okay.
And I'll explain about
and
that.
Patsy
Patsy Costello's house will be on the tour. Patsy Costello was president of the Historical Society for over 20 years, had perfect attendance. She kept the Historical Society going. We got to give her a lot of credit. She passed away this early spring.
I didn't know that.
Oh, well, yes.
I heard she was having back problems, but I didn't.
She was in a nursing home for a couple of years, actually. Okay, did that family that was coming 2 minutes away?
Not yet, but they'll probably be able to catch up. They can see, they'll see us. Yeah.
Well, if we park down there, they'll see us, yes. Okay, so let's go. We're going to go this way around the block. Kind of a short walk, but there's lots to talk about. Any questions, don't be afraid to just ask, all right? This house here on the left is now the town library annex. There's offices in here. The board of directors of the library have their meetings in here, and it was known as the Harrington House because Harrington was switched jobs for a while. He was the superintendent at the
microphone.
Rogers estate. There were 3 big estates in Hyde Park: the Vanderbilt, the Rogers, and the Roosevelt estate. Well, he was superintendent at the Rogers estate, and then he switched and he was superintendent at the Vanderbilt estate. Actually, what the library, we didn't talk about the library. We met at the library, but we didn't talk about it. It was built in 1927 by Franklin Roosevelt's mother in honor of James Roosevelt, who was father of Franklin Roosevelt. And she bought that lot because it was vacant at the time. And it was right on the corner of Albany Post Road and Main Street. It was a perfect place for a library. So she bought that lot because it was vacant, but this house went with it. They were together, so for a while it did belong to Franklin Roosevelt's mother. All right, and later when the library, there was a codicil in the deed that said it could only be used for residential purposes. She didn't want this house to be used for commercial purposes. So she put a deed, something in the deed that said we can't use it for anything except for residence. But the library wanted to buy it back, and they had some trouble. They were able to find some relatives of the Roosevelts that signed off on it, that it could be used for library purposes. So it's very interesting, and went back and forth, but now it's all part of the library complex here. And they're going to, the library's going to build an elevator for handicapped people. In the 1970s, there were laws passed that if you had a public building, it had to be accessible to handicapped people. They're going to put an elevator the other side of where that air conditioning thing is.
But I'm just not clear how the library acquired the house. Did they buy it or was it bequeathed?
We bought it.
The library bought it from
The person that lived there.
it's so all right, we got to keep going. But the library bought this house from Tom Spence. Tom Spence was the town supervisor. He had the shortest commute that you can imagine. All he had to do was walk from here across the street to his office. He was the town supervisor.
And what year was that?
Maybe Mrs. Battistoni knows. Her husband sold the property. Was the real estate agent. Right?
No, he wasn't. No, he didn't. The money came from someone who passed away, and she willed money to that. That's why it's called the Keys Library. Is that over there?
Oh yeah, June Key.
Right.
Oh.
She what is the year? It should say. Is that it?
Right here. That's June Key's Memorial Annex.
Yeah. So she willed us the money, and just when we got that money, this became for sale. It just was one of those serendipitous things that happened.
Yeah.
And that's how we bought the library. I'm trying to think, maybe 20, I gotta look that up.
Yeah, not that long ago.
No, it wasn't.
Right.
Yeah, maybe even more than that, 2012, 2015.
Okay.
Terry, you remember?
Okay. Most people don't spot this, but my wife has 5 4 by 8 foot paintings on the outside of the house. People think that there were windows there when we covered up the windows, but no, they're on flat parts of the house. She made them look like windows.
Yeah. Cool.
And this is an art studio now. The gallery is in the back of the house, but this is her studio. It's very unique. We don't know of any other artist that has ever put a studio on their front porch.
Right.
But we had to keep the columns for historical purposes. If you wanted to pass this painting around, if you haven't seen, that's not a painting, that's a photograph, I'm sorry.
Anybody in the back want to see this?
The photographer was standing on the steps of the town hall. That was taken November 4th, 1940, at election day. And there's a huge crowd standing right where we're standing. probably bigger than the crowd that we got now. And this was in the background of that photograph. Just make sure I get it back in my hands eventually.
What's the history of this place?
This home was was built in 1842 by Archibald Rogers' family. It belonged to his grandmother, and he was raised. Archibald Rogers was raised in this home. Anybody from Hyde Park probably has heard the Archibald Rogers name, but he was the third rich family in Hyde Park. Vanderbilts, Rogers, and then Roosevelt. And
Didn't at one time there used to be something about a Campbell or Pendleton mansion?
yes, Pendleton family married, the Rogers family married into the Pendleton family. And our son, Rogers, became like a billionaire. He married a very rich woman. He didn't really do much to earn his money other than manage her money. Her name was Ann Coleman Rogers. Ann Coleman. And they made their money during the Civil War selling armaments to the Union Army. Oh, she was from Savannah, Georgia originally. She switched sides once she married Archibald Rogers.
Here's the picture back when I got there on the porch.
Yes. The town hall here, was that built by Rogers? Yes. The question is, the town hall, was it built by Rogers? It was built by not physically built. He paid for to have the town hall built. It was a two-story, very beautiful old. It was made out of wood, though, and eventually, after about 100 years, it burned down. I don't know the exact date. It was in the late 60s, and they decided to build a brick building instead of a wood building. Hopefully this one won't burn down right away.
Right.
All right. The town hall was originally a men's club. This was back when men's clubs were really popular in New York City. Women weren't allowed in there. The men would sit around and smoke cigars and tell gossip about the women, right? So, and then it became a community hall. There was actually a bowling alley that the community could use. It only had 2 lanes, but it was right where the front of the town hall is now. I have to be careful what I say on this tour because they're all friends and neighbors of mine, and I don't want to upset anything.
Do you know anything about the history of this home, this house?
No, I don't. The current owners are the Davies sisters.
Okay.
They're very nice neighbors, I'll tell you that. They're real nice.
I remember this. I know. We drove up there close to that. And when I was drawing houses,
Sure. All right. So, another close commuter back. People didn't drive an hour and 45 minutes to get to work. They found a job close to home. George Briggs lived in this house, the gray house with a red trim on it. He was a World War II veteran. He was in the Navy, but he participated in the D-Day landings at Normandy he drove a barge that was those landing barges where they brought in the soldiers and they dropped the front part of the barge and the soldiers went out and a lot of them got shot. And George said he was glad he was in the Navy because he didn't have to leave the barge. He could just turn around and go back and get another load and bring it back in for the second wave, that kind of thing. And he was a wonderful, wonderful man.
Did you know him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little emotion.
Yeah.
Because he was a real nice guy.
Uh-huh.
And when my wife was pushing her son around in the baby carriage, he would always come out and pat his head and that kind of thing. And he had a job at the town hall. He was a town clerk for quite a while.
Okay.
George Briggs.
George Briggs.
Yeah, it's my birthday, so we already celebrated together.
I think Joanne Lown bought his car, right,
I did.
after he passed away. Yeah.
So all these houses more or less are over 100
When
years
did
old.
you move in?
Probably in the early 1900s. Or
All these houses on the street. Yeah.
2000.
Yeah. Okay. And Patsy wrote a nice, rather thick, history.
No, that was Harry T. Briggs.
Oh, she
Harry T.
okay.
Briggs.
Who's that?
Okay, so I don't know a lot about the greenish gray house, but the White House next to it belonged to Margaret and Antonio Marquez. Margaret Logan Marquez. She was a town historian for, I don't know, maybe 20 years. And very nice person. I'm not going to talk about any bad people, so everybody, I'll say they were nice people. But before Margaret, she bought the house in I think the 1940s. And before that, there was a woman. Does anyone who the most famous cook at the White House was?
No, Henrietta, right? Somebody?
Henrietta somebody or other.
Right,
all
right.
Nisbet.
But she was famous as a cook, but she was also a very terrible cook. What it is, she could cook pastries real well. And what she did, there was a meeting going on, I believe it was this house here, number 14. There was a meeting of the Roosevelt Home Club or the Town Democratic Party, but she was renting the White House, and she brought some pastries over for the women at this meeting. And Eleanor Roosevelt just fell in love with her pastries. So Eleanor thought that she could make a good cook at the White House. The trouble is, the only thing she could cook was pastries. And Roosevelt, the whole time he was in the White House, he was in agony from the cooking, because apparently Eleanor couldn't cook very well either, or
She was very frugal too, wasn't she?
She was what?
Very frugal.
Yeah.
She was,
Frugal.
entertaining people, and she didn't get fancy.
Yeah. But this woman's, her only claim to fame was she was the worst cook at the White House. I think somebody even wrote an essay about her. Okay. And this woman that somebody was talking, the man that somebody was talking about was Harry T. Briggs. I think he lived in this house. And it was either this house or the next one. Harry T. Briggs was a Quaker and related to George Briggs somehow. And they were both Quakers. Well, Harry T. Briggs wrote and it's available in the museum, a book, the family of the DeGraff and Briggs families. And the thing that struck me was that one of the ancestors, they wanted to go participate in the Civil War. And there were two young men, and somehow Quakers don't participate in wars other than a conscientious objector as a medical medic. But these guys got in, these two young men were in Maryland, I believe it was, and their father went down and took them out of the camp and brought them back home. That was one of the stories that's in Harry T. Briggs' book. And it's available at the museum. We have a lot of books for sale at the museum. Okay. The next house on the left with the column, we think that's the oldest house on the street. Probably built around 1840.
Carney, anything about the gray house over there?
For quite a while.
Or the blue one?
That died.
Nope.
No? Okay. The only thing significant is how it's lived there.
The worst cook at the White House is you have to done something either good or bad.
Right, yeah.
This home, a lot of people in Hyde Park, probably almost everybody, at one time was connected with the three mansions, Vanderbilt, Rogers, and Roosevelt. And the chauffeur for Vanderbilt, Douglas Crapster, lived in this home, this white home here with a little pantry in the front here.
Right.
It's kind of a unique idea. I've never seen that anywhere else. You can leave something or take something in the pantry. Very nice. But Doug Crapster, the chauffeur, lived here. No, that was the annex for the library, but it did have a porch out front. A lot of these, almost every house had a porch out front, so that somebody could sit out front and slowly watch people go by. And now very few places have porches. The number one porch is my wife's art studio.
When Crapser's son lived the house, the upstairs was an apartment, and I lived up there. I rented the apartment.
Okay, we have somebody who lived in this house.
Well, one of my big moves was from that side of the street to this side of the street. Then I bought a house on Albertson Street. So I've just moved for a very long time, just throwing things in a box, taking them to the next place, emptying the box, coming back and refill it.
Very good, Doug.
Pain.
Now we're coming to what I call the medical corner. We had 3 doctors in town at one time. The corner house on that side of the street was J. Sterling Bird. And he's the man who contributed $7,000 to allow the town to buy the library from the Roosevelt estate. And he lived on the corner, had his offices, lived on the corner. The next house was Patsy Costello's house. It's been sold recently. And in that house, James Carney had an office in that house. This house, oh, I got to look in my cheat sheet here.
Registered historic.
Darn it, I have it right on the tip of my tongue. There was another doctor that lived here, let's put it that way. And his, do you know who? We have some historical society members here, so you got to help me out a little, all right? But a doctor had his offices on the first floor, and he lived on the second floor. And now it's been converted into 4 apartments. There's, I think, 3 apartments in the house on the corner, and it's just a single-family home here. And then, what the heck was his name? I'm just trying to think of his name. Crack was in Patsy's house.
Oh, okay. And that's right.
That house on the corner is not.
I lived in that house.
Dr. Locke.
Lock.
I lived in that house. Oh, Locke.
Dr. Locke lived in this house, and eventually, I guess he wanted to take over the downstairs, but he had this building here that for a long time has been a dentist office. All right, where Hyde Park Optometry is, we talked about it on our other walk around this block. That was, for a while, it was a men's club, like we talked about before. And then it became the YMCA, which is Young Men's Christian Association.
It was never a church?
They had basketball games on the first floor in there.
Wow.
And then it was also a dress factory. Is that what somebody said? I didn't hear too
No, I
well.
was asking, it was never a church, it's just a unique design.
Well, it might have been, it started out, I think it did, as the Baptist church. But it's the things I was talking about were after the Baptist church. And now it's optometry.
It was a YM.
David Ray, who recently passed away, he had an apartment on the second floor.
This is where Patsy's husband found the cannonball.
All right. I don't know if we need to tell that
He
story.
didn't find it there. The lady who lived downstairs, actually found it. I lived upstairs. I lived in that apartment.
That's a very nice apartment house.
Very well.
There was a story that appeared all over America, really. It was in the Chicago paper. I have Patsy Costello's husband. A woman that lived in this house found a cannonball in the front yard after a tree had fallen over. All right?
Tree's right here.
And
It fell under the house right here, right above my window. I looked.
Oh, you live there?
Yeah, I lived right there. I lived right there.
and
Nice, nice.
Patsy's husband took it to the West Point Museum, and they said, yes, that's from the Revolutionary War. So there's a picture of Art Costello holding the cannonball like that. And I think we have it in the museum now.
We do.
If we can find it.
We do.
And there's some talk that it might have been put there by somebody else. All right? It might not have been shot from all the way from the river up to here.
That was very good.
During the Revolutionary War, the British did sail up the river, and the only battle in Dutchess County was right down at the waterfront here, where the train station is now. And they were shooting at a house that was up here on the corner. There's a monument up there now, and we'll take a look at the monument. But there was a house right in the middle of where West Market Street is now. So we have to take a look at that.
Shouldn't be that far off.
All right.
The tree would have been a twig.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
After a while, any historical story gets maneuvered around, so the things I'm telling you is what I assume are correct, all right? There's a lot of stories about George Washington, how he threw a silver dollar across the road or something, across the Potomac River, and chopped down a cherry tree and couldn't tell a lie. Well, the whole story was a lie.
Do we have any information on the house to our left?
Actually, Marie Giltnack still lives here. Very nice woman.
Yeah.
Is it Marie or Mark?
We knew her children. They're real nice. But I don't know anything about it other than down over the hill. She owns a triangular West Market Street and Main Street meet in a
Right.
point of a triangle down below. And there is a spring down there. And Dr. Cronk told the story at his retirement party that one time somebody wanted to sell spring water, like Poland Spring you buy in the Stop and Shop. Well, they wanted to have it was a pretty good spring there, so they wanted to sell bottled water. And Dr. Cronk set a couple bottles of the water up to Albany, and what happened is they wrote back real quick, do not sell this water, it's not even fit for cows. Because what happened is a lot of the septic systems and the outhouses, it was all outhouses back then, they were leaching into that spring. So do not sell that water. With our modern septic systems now, it's not so bad. So Patsy Costello's family, the fellow that became the president of the Columbia Green Community College, he grew up in this house right here. James Campion or something like that.
I went to school with him.
You went to school with him?
Yeah.
Maybe I ought to get the microphone to you, Doug. I don't know.
He's a member of our society. I didn't know that was his claim to fame.
Yeah, he was the president of Columbia Green Community College.
Member.
Yeah. You know, people are welcome to
Yeah.
join.
Oh, and another thing I forgot, the house left of the taller building with a looks like a church steeple on top. That was the rectory for the St. James Church. And after it was the rectory for the St. James Church, it was converted into apartments. And one of the tenants of the apartment was Lorena Hickok. She was a very dear friend of Eleanor Roosevelt. She worked for the United Press, and she wrote stories about Eleanor Roosevelt, but as soon as Eleanor invited her to live at the White House, she slept on a daybed in Eleanor's room. She quit the Associated Press because she didn't think it was ethical to write stories about somebody that was that close to her.
Now, which house is it?
Lorena Hickok. It's the apartment building on the side of, just past the building with a steeple.
So going the other way.
Yeah.
To the left.
It's in front of the apartments
Okay.
that ring around it in the back.
Yeah. I know the house. You know Linda D'Avenzo, right? Linda D'Avenzo?
Yeah.
Yeah, she went to
Dr. who? Dr. Her. You know that was Dr. Her. When I grew up. No. That's the one Vanderbilt built for a friend of the and I think that's been there some 120 years or so. Yeah. Okay, so this monument was put here, but technically it should be right out in the middle of the street here, because the first colonial settler of Hyde Park, Jacobus Stoutenburg, built his home at this site, 1741. And his house was right there, and this West Market Street was actually a driveway into his house. And then eventually it got converted into a street, and his house was sitting right there, and they tore it down. It's before people were thinking about history back then. And Jacobus Stoutenburg, I think we said in the advertisement for this walking tour that there's going to be some gossip. He came, his mother owned some property up here, the Jacobus mother. And in 1740, there was a horrible incident in New York City where the whole city was going crazy. They thought that the Negro slaves that were living in New York City were conspiring to burn the city down. And there were fires here and there. It probably was some arson involved, but nobody was trying to burn the whole city down. And then what happened is they'd arrest a Negro slave, and he would tell on some other people, and they were all made up stories. They were just trying to save their own life. But it was a rolling rumors, that kind of thing. And Jacobus witnessed one of the Negroes climbing out a second-story window of a warehouse, and he had to testify at their trial. And it must have torn, and the onus of it must have just torn him apart. And he decided to move up here to Hyde Park, where things were nice and calm and clean. And that's why the first settler in Hyde Park came here. That was more or less escaped from New York City. Now we have a lot of people in Hyde Park that escaped from New York City living today.
But then you said this is a house they were shooting at. And why?
Jacobus had a house built here. Either that or his mother had already started it. We don't know for sure.
So when the war came, why were they?
The British, really.
Because the Stoutenbergs were patriots, Continentals, patriots.
Right.
And when the British were coming up, they were firing at any patriot home.
Okay.
And they had three Duke, I think their name was Duke brothers, in the ships with them and pointing out the various homes where patriots lived.
Okay. Interesting.
All right, so the brick house across the street, that was built for a man named Wales. He was either a cousin or a really good friend of Vanderbilt. It was built at the same time that the Vanderbilt mansion was built. And he was superintendent of the Vanderbilt estate. He had a short commute also. He could just walk to work. And with the Wales daughter, there's a saying that money marries money, right? So if you had lots of money, you look for a suitable partner for your children. And the suitable partner had to be pretty well off too. And so the Wales daughter married a DuPont, DuPont Chemical down in Delaware. And so she moved away. During World War II, it was owned by the Scheer family, and I think Scheer was also had something to do with the Vanderbilt estate. Frederick Vanderbilt died in 1938, but there's stories of Scheer during World War II, S-H-E-A-R. During World War II, he had to block off with large blankets and other material most of his house because he couldn't afford he couldn't, or not even afford, maybe he could afford it, but he couldn't find enough coal to keep the furnace going in the cellar. So even the rich people had to struggle a little during World War II. But if you can, I've been in the house, and the rooms are huge. And I think they were living like in the kitchen or something like that. But I'd like to introduce Joanne.
I'm Joanne Lown. I just wanted, I don't know how many people grew up in Hyde Park, but Dr. Hurst, does everybody know him or know of him? Dr. Hurst used to be a family doctor, and him and his family lived here, I think the 50s through the late 70s. And there's information about him in the museum, but the great thing is St. James Church is having their graveyard tours starting in October. They're on Friday and Saturday. It's the first 3 weekends. And he's going to be one of the characters that is going to talk about his life. And we also have two other people here who are actresses for the tour. This is Faith and her daughter Zoe. Faith, tell them what you're going to be playing.
Hello, we're so excited to be participating in the graveyard tours this year. I'm going to be portraying Ruth Livingston Mills from the Scottsburg Historic Site. I'm also a docent there, so she's really close and dear to my heart. And so we're very excited about doing that this year. I wish a lot of people would come down and tour the mansion. It's an exceptional place to see. And it's open Thursdays through Sundays with tours all during the day. And then at Christmas time, they're going to be decorating the mansion inside and out. and conducting tours all through the holidays as well. So hope to see you at the graveyard tours.
Great.
Zoe?
And then I'm going to be portraying Mary E. Johnston, and she was the first organist for St. James Church.
Oh.
And I think this is the first year that they've done her as Ruth.
Yeah.
So she's a lovely character. So we look forward to seeing all you guys if you guys come down. It's a really cool experience to get to do that. It's almost like a love letter to the locals of Hyde Park, and I think it's really cool, even including Dr. Hurst this year. That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
How many people like have stories of him and memories of him? It's really cool to see him become kind of commemorated in that way. So it'll be really cool. We hope to see you guys there.
Yep.
So.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for beginning the first weekend in
Starting
October.
the 6th and 7th, so that's the first weekend of October.
6th and 7th. Okay. Very good.
Okay, we're gonna go that way. I think it's better if we do like single file on the left side of the road.
That's a little loose.
Yeah.
Joanne, hustle up here. Nice big lawn here, so we can get on
Yeah.
the lawn, I guess. The people that own this now are, like I say, all my neighbors are really nice. Lyle and Valerie, I don't know their last name. What is it? Stampier. And they've actually allowed people, the Visual Environment Committee had a tour of their house one time, so they're very personable people. But they purchased this house here, and they already had a lot that went over to Doty Avenue, and they also purchased there's a small house that you can't see it
Oh, the one in the back?
in the back there, right?
And that's also a rental?
They're either renting or bed and breakfast or something like that. I don't know. Most B&Bs are not B&Bs anymore. They're Airbnb,
Right.
so that you don't have to get breakfast there. You have to go somewhere.